afternoon. How are you doing? Okay, I think that today they're going to give me a little bit more time than yesterday. So I might try to be able to do it a little bit slower. But as a continuation of what the presentation was yesterday, we talk about submission of INDs in the first 30 days. And hopefully you are lucky enough not to get in clinical hold. So your IND is active and you're working on that. So in this presentation, what I'm going to talk in the first part of it is what are your responsibilities? What else do you need to do once the IND is active? Because we have it in-house, but there is a lot of things you will have to do. Maureen will follow the presentation later on, talking about some help, what we call it available development programs, that there are special programs that you can request or participate during the IND program. And the disclaimer. During the active IND, the IND is active. The 30 days pass, we gave you a call, we tell you you're good to go, so you're happy to start from your start the clinical trial. Once the IND is active and based on what is written in the regs, you can submit amendments to the IND. You can submit protocol amendments, and that's what we're going to do. What are information amendments? Safety reporting. My colleague Yuri Yasinskaya gave you a wonderful presentation this morning. And I'm not going to go into detail for that, but she's the one who is the expert in our area. I'm going to add something about pediatric study plans, annual reports, what is an inactivation of an IND, and the withdrawal of the IND. And in some of them, there is more depth that I can talk, and others, it is what it is. So unfortunately, you have to submit it. Under 21 CFR 330, and I'm giving you these references not because there's going to be a test and you need to remember the numbers, I don't, but everything that we do has a regulatory framework and we support it by the references I give you there. Protocol amendments or new protocols, changes in protocol, a new investigator. So let's figure out what happened in the new protocol. You submitted your IND, you have your protocol, and to study drugs in acute situs. And eventually the drug has potential to do acquired pneumonia. So you will have decided that you're going to study a new indication. So you need to submit a new protocol to the agency. The new protocol in the agency, yes, you submit it. And again, submit a Form 1571. Remember that. And it's really crucial that you put in the Form 1571, item 11, protocol amendment / new protocol. And I think that it's important. I think that I thought about it longer, and I cannot stop emphasizing how important it is that the information we get in the 1571 is the correct one. And the other thing I need to add here is why we like cover letters. So let me tell you a little bit how we operate in FDA. If you make a submission, and commercial INDs need to be submitted electronically, paper INDs, non-commercial or research INDs can still be submitted paper, although we prefer electronic formatting. You submit your information to the document room or comes through the gateway, that if it's an electronic common technical document. Based on the information that's listed in the 1571, our document room looks at what it is, and if it says 11 protocol amendment, new protocol, they upload that information in our tracking system. That tracking system automatically creates an assignment for the reviewers. So if it says protocol amendment, new protocol, automatically will be directed to the clinical reviewer. And that's what the document room does based on the 1571. But this information, as it came to the document room, was uploaded there in the electronic or in the common document room, comes to the project managers. And we go backwards. So what I do personally is I look at the cover letter, and the company says, oh, we decided to study a new indication. And by the way, we're going to study community-acquired pneumonia here, find and close a new protocol for community-acquired pneumonia. It's different from the previous one, although it's related to, it's different because it's a new indication. And you tell us a little bit of the story, what is in the submission in the cover letter. From the cover letter, I go and check what is in the 15. Go to the cannot hear. Yeah. So in 1571, I make sure that if you tell me that is a new protocol, it's coded correctly. And that way, the correct reviewer is going to get it. More than that, we have a whole system that is preset, so if it's a new protocol, we know who the reviewers need to do. So this is probably why we want to have correct 1571s, and we really appreciate a nice cover letter. It's almost as it's nice to receive. I still believe that it's nice to receive correspondence, not via email, thank you note, or a letter, but I'm an old-timer, so it works. But it almost covers like, hey, we're friends, here is what I'm submitting to you. So, in essence, based on that is that's how we operate. So, what is important, the two elements that we need. Again, if you submit a new protocol, submit a copy of the protocol and a brief description of the most clinically significant differences, if there are, in what you were studying before and what you are trying to bring now. And the difference that with your initial IND submission, you don't need to wait the 30 days in order to start a new protocol. Your IND is active. It's okay. At this moment, it's our check. You are to check if it's acceptable or not. So once you submit your new protocol to the FDA, you got your IRB approval, you're good to go. You don't need to wait the 30 days. Having said that, there is always a chance, as my colleague said yesterday, or yesterday in the chemistry, and today Charu said, the clinical hold is not imposed only at the beginning of the 30 days. Anytime the clinical hold can come along the way, and I'm going to tell you some examples later how that it happens, that you can get a clinical hold when you are along in your development program with no problem. So that is new protocol. However, let's assume that we got your initial IND submission in our division, and this is not everybody that happens. We provide you comments on the protocol, on the chemistry, on the statistical analysis, on the microbiology. If we provide you comments, it's not that they're clinical holds, it's just to help to bring a better project, to get a better protocol, to assess endpoints, to figure out information. It's a guidance. Not every division provides comments on protocols. I am the lucky one in one division who our reviewers take the time to review it. They don't do it immediately. It might take them 60 days, 90 days sometimes. But you get some comments on the protocol. And you say, oh, you received that letter, notification in a letter or in a fax or in an email. And it says, oh, the recommendation from FDA makes sense. We're going to implement changes you suggested. Thank you very much. It's good to hear that you're not fighting us. So you need to submit a protocol amendment. You're modifying your protocol, and you need to change your protocol. And that's the case where you're going to submit again to the FDA, and again in the Form 1571, and in Section 11 protocol amendment, you will say change in protocol. For any phase 1 study, any change that affects the safety of the subject, you don't need to submit to us. It's good to know that there's an issue of the safety. But phase 2, you need to submit any changes that affect the safety of the patients, changing the inclusion-exclusion criteria. The scope of the investigation, you're going to analyze a subset of the community-acquired pneumonia, not all of them. And our scientific quality of the study. You're going to have a different kind of enrollment. You're going to enroll a different number of patients. You're going to change the way you analyze it. And from there, it's our responsibility to guide it to our reviewers. I'm giving you in the next following slides, I'm not going to go one by one, but those are some of the elements that come in the change in protocol. I have 3 slides for that. Please take a look at them, and if you have any question on those, please let us know. Especially if you're going to change the control group, there's other procedures. Many of those things are things that we might have given you the comments to update it or to revise it. But in the next 3 slides, this is what happened with the protocol amendment. This protocol amendment, again, you can implement it as soon as you submit it to the FDA and the protocol has been approved by your IRB. So those are the 2 conditions for this protocol amendment with protocol change. Again, we take the agency and the regs and the FD&C Act takes very seriously the safety of the patients. And if it's a protocol change intended to eliminate or apparent immediate hazard to subject, you can implement it immediately and IRB notify. Caveat, this is very general, very broad, and it's written in Code of Federal Regulations. However, if you find an immediate hazard to your subjects in a clinical trial that you are conducting now, you better pick up the phone and call the agency before even you submit the letter telling us what happened. It's important that that communication exists. This is important when you are at the agency and you submit your IND and you get a communications with the project manager, you contact them and tell them, we got a problem. We just figure out that we have some problem with the patients and we're going to modify our protocol and have some kind of crash cart with additional drugs or not. Let us know. Don't keep us in the dark. It's better to know for us because there is a lot of help that can come along the way. Again, any one of those, put me a cover letter. Why the study is intended to support a marketing application or not. Again, description of the study design. The most important thing that my reviewers love, and it's not a requirement, but they love, is if you're going to have a protocol change, submit a track changes version of where the changes are. Because it takes a lot of time later. We can't take the two documents and do a PDF comparison. Take the documents and compare the Word. But if you already know where the changes are going to implement it, it's so much easier, and we're going to be forever thankful that you submitted that and said, these people are really great. We don't need to call them. But track changes and a clean version. And clean version is because our reviewers, for every one of those submissions that you made, we need to write a review. Or we need to notify that we saw it and there is nothing that we need to comment on. Your submissions don't go into a black box. We really look at them. Maybe we don't look at them immediately unless you alert us, but we look at them. So please alert us. And the reviewers take the document and it's easy. Either they need to type it, they just cut and paste the information, put in their review. And we have seen it and revisions that we might have. Again, some divisions provide comments on protocol changes. Other divisions don't have the manpower to do it. The regs state that we will provide comments as resources allow. In my division, we tried, but it takes time. Important to know what is the implementation date, because that will bring us an idea if we need to look at it a little bit more in detail, or just briefly happen to see what's going on before you implement, and if there's any safety concerns. The other protocol amendment is whenever you have a new investigator, and again, Form 1571, Item 11, Protocol Amendment, new investigator. And once you added the investigator, you can just ship the drugs to that investigational site and they can start using it. And the notification of new investigators will give you a little bit more time, can be sent to the agency within 30 days when the investigator has been added. And this is the information that we need on the investigator, their qualifications, reference to other submissions. There is a guidance sheet that you can do. In many instances, what the sponsors do is send us a 1572, and that is a qualification of the investigators, and that should be okay. Many sponsors provide a 1570 copy of the 1572 and attach the CV that is 25, 30, 40, 50 pages. And it's okay. When it was in paper, it was really cumbersome. But now that it's electronic, it's much easier to scan the copies. And I'm not trying in any way to diminish the acumen and the work that the investigators do. Sometimes I have an IND submission that is 2 pages protocol and 50 pages CV. That's okay. It is. That's the reality. And believe me, it's not my intention to belittle the acumens in the accomplishments of the investigators and the physicians. The reality of what it comes. So anyway, we have an investigation guidance for sponsors, and you can get more information on what needs to be included. This is the bottom line. When can I start it, what it is, and new protocol and protocol change submitted before implementation. New investigator or updated information can be submitted in 30 days intervals. You don't need to submit it every time. We really like it if you do it 30 days because every new submission comes to the document room, it's assigned to the medical officer, comes to us. We confirm that it's the medical officer and comes back and it's okay. It's fine. This is the way we do our job. So now, aside from protocol changes, we have also information amendments. Things that you change in the protocol that they're not an amendment to the protocol, they're not an IND safety report, and they're not the annual report. And in essence, whenever you have new information to bring with regard to chemistry, pharmacology, clinical stats, clinical pharmacology, any other updated, change in sponsor, you change your address, you need to let us know. It comes under Information Amendment, Section 11, and you need to let us know what. Most of the times what I receive under Information Amendment is updated chemistry information, that they got a new batch and it's better than they had before, especially for the biologic products. I can tell you, I guarantee you that my reviewers in the chemistry look at those things, because in many instances they say, we need to call the sponsor and provide a comment on new toxicology. When you completed the pharmacology toxicology study, you have the report, submitted again, let us know what it is. Discontinuation of investigation. And I'm going to mention two cases here for reference to see that even though you're going to see that they're both similar, they're not the same. I received a call from an investigator, a pharmaceutical company developing a product for transplant, solid organ transplantation, for prevention of rejection. And tells me, listen, we analyzed, we had a few cases of rejection, and we just stopped any kind of further enrollment until we analyze the data and what's going to happen and how are we going to move forward. I'm just alerting you that in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to deliver, and the submissions will come through the electronic gateway to you. Good thing. I love when people alert me and tell me, it's coming. We're going to let you know what happened. We look at the data. It's for prevention of the rejection. It's a maintenance of immunosuppression, that is preventing of rejection. They analyzed, they had a few cases where the patients had graft rejection. We start to look a little bit what it is. A rejection of the graft is an endpoint that is an efficacy. However, in this particular case, it translates in a safety issue, because if you lose the graft, it's a safety concern. So not every efficacy. Some things are safety. We had telecons with the company. We continued discussing with them. And bottom line, the division director decided that they need to go in partial hold. At that moment, they decided until we figure out a little bit more details of what's going on in the drug and what's happened with the patient, and if we are using the wrong dose or not, at this moment, you cannot enroll any more patients on this particular dose and duration for this particular. Continue doing other studies in other patient populations or other, but this particular one, they went in partial clinical hold. And the company understood it, and it's fine. One. So efficacy translates in safety. Not too long ago, in a different area, I'm bringing the samples of what I work with. I have the division of transplant and ophthalmology products. So we had an ophthalmology. I get a call from a regulatory contact in a very famous institution who does oncology, ophthalmic, pediatric research. You can gather who it is. I'm not going to name, but very good. And the regulatory contact says, listen, you're pushing through the gateway a notification that we have a serious adverse event. One of the patients that we have lost the eyesight, and it's serious, and we need to alert you and let you know. But by the way, I'm going to send the information, but our management went to the DSMB and they're analyzing the data. And until we analyze the data and make a decision what to do, we're not going to do anything, but we stop enrollment. It's similar to the other one, right? So immediately when I get some notification like that, the first thing I do is I love the forward button in the email. Send it to the medical officer and say, listen, just to alert you, it's coming. Let me know if we need to move forward based on the information I had. So I talked to her, talked to the team leader, and they said, well, you know what? The company is stating what they're planning to do. They're not going to enroll any more patients until we get an analysis of the case in more details. It's possible that the loss of the eyesight that the patient had is due to the development of the disease itself, and it's a confounded adverse events, and it's not necessarily. So she says, I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to figure out, but we don't need to put them on clinical hold. So again, where we receive that, and even though it might feel that why in one case we put them and in the other one is a judgment call. It's based on the risk-benefit that we have and the confounding factors that we will have. So you might or might not. The eye product resolve in 3 months, the company sent us the analysis was similar to the conclusions we reached. And bottom line, they modified the dose of the product. So it's fine, and they continue, but they never were put on clinical hold, but they say we stop it. So what I'm telling you is the discontinuation of investigations, it's really crucial that you pick up the phone and tell us. Say that. We will get the information anyway through the gateway or in a paper. But it's important that you keep us alert, especially when you find some kind of adverse event that is unusual or you're stopping an investigation for a safety issue. Sometimes you want comments, and it's okay. You submit a protocol and says, please provide us comments, or we modify the chemistry. I would like if you can provide us some comments or respond to the 2 questions we have. We're going to try to respond to you, but in these cases, particularly, we do not have timelines to do it. And the important thing is when you put in the cover letter, put in bold reference and in bold in 2 fonts larger what you want in that submission. Request for comments or stop of investigation, because if this is so important, it brings it to our attention that when we go look at the cover letter is another reminder that we need to do something else about that. And the reviewers look at that too. Moving along, IND safety regulations. I just put there what the regulation. This is the topic that you'll discuss this morning with you. So it's another responsibility, but you need to bring it along. Now, this is something interesting and needs to be done. And I know that I'm going to go over the 8 minutes, but that's fine. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it. Jeff is not going to get me this time. Anyway, I learn from my mistakes sometimes. Pediatric study plans. You're a pharmaceutical company who is developing a product for the marketing application. During the passage of FastTrack in the year 2012, so if you're a commercial sponsor, you are supposed to submit what is called the initial pediatric study plan within 60 days of an end of phase 2 meeting. And there is the guidance for industries, very specific what information you need to submit. We have 210 days turnaround time, right? In between we send it and comment and going back and forth. But 210 days is 7 months. So it's a long time. But you know what? Whenever we get it in our side, it becomes crunch time. And everything gets done probably at the end of the 209 day or 208, but we meet the deadline. It's important that you do that. What happens if you're a pharmaceutical company doing all your studies from Europe, you didn't have an end of phase 2 meeting, and you want to submit an NDA to the agency? It's fine. We'll love your NDA, submit the information, but by the way, you need to have a proposed pediatric study plan. So be aware that even if you didn't have an end of phase 2 meeting, you need to have it. And by the time that submission comes to the agency as an NDA, has to be before those 210 days. Just keep it in mind because it might be a reason not to file your application if we don't have it. I have not had any case that happened, but it's a possibility. So better try to think of those initial study plans. And this is in general what comes from the guidance. You need to have a guideline. The law requires that for pediatric studies, you need to be deferred. You need to get a waiver, full waiver, or there are cases who does not apply. And there is a big document that you need to craft to the agency, but it's very streamlined. If you look at the guidance, it's very easy. Okay, it seems that it's easy to make. I'm not going to claim that it's easy to put together, but can be put together. And this is your intentions, how your product is going to be addressing the pediatric use of the product. Some indications don't have pediatric use. Some of them, fortunately, it's not. You're going to talk about macular degeneration. Probably there's not enough patients, pediatric patients, to do it. So that is going to be waived. Some of them are going to be deferred. But this is your call. And during those 210 days, there's constant communications with the agency. So we talk to you through the project manager, modify this, what it is. So it's not that you send it and we forget how to do it. In case you have any questions, this is the link to the pediatric group, Division of Pediatric and Maternal Health, and if there's any more information you need. That website is very informative, and you have a lot of information there that you can learn and how to get this information. Again, this is another sticky point that we get most of the time. The regs call that for any IND that is active, you need to submit an annual report. An annual report on this. Not later than the 60-day anniversary. I gotta put it in another one, right? So in this report, what you need to tell us is what happened in the previous year. What your product? The annual reports can be as slim as 2 pages if it's an individual investigator that enrolled 10 patients and didn't see any adverse event, and they continue trying to enroll patients, or could be a ton of information that you submitted in the information because you enroll more patients, because the study was completed and you're trying to do the interim results. You need to submit all IND safety reports. So if it's a drug that has adverse events, you need to include that, people who died. So how much or how little, well, that depends on the level of intensity of your drug development program. But we need to have this annual report. In essence, the annual report also is requiring to tell us what you plan to do the next year, what planning to do in progress, what are the manufacturing sites, problems we have. We were able to develop a better formulation that it's made much faster, that is more stable. Let us know all that. I can guarantee you that the reviewers look at them. The annual report also needs to include the description, as I said, for the next year, and any other issues that it's pending with the agency. You have a meeting and say, oh, by the way, we are a meeting pending, or we're going to have a meeting shortly with the agency. The annual report needs to be submitted within 60 days of the anniversary date of the application went into effect. So if you submitted your IND on January the 1st, and the IND becomes effective on January the 30th, the annual report will be no later than, I took that, 60 days after January the 30th, considering that we have February 28th, I chose the wrong one. But anyway, 60 days after that. Has to be annually, include the 1571, and we have a way of tracking. We track the annual reports. And if you do not submit the annual reports, we'll remind you. And not in a very nice way, and tell you, you forgot to do the annual report, please submit 30 days. And the letter went somewhere. So in 30 days, 60 days, nothing happens. We have automatically the second letter goes. And wait, if you do not submit your annual report within the next 30 days, your IND might be terminated. And somewhere, I don't know where. Okay, finally, we terminated because we did not get a response. It's one of the most, it's written in the reg, you need to do it. Get the termination letter. At that point, somebody says, oh, termination, this is really important. Let me give it to the investigator. And all hell breaks loose there. What are we going to do? We are conducting the study. How did the FDA terminate it? I never received the letter. So I told, yes, because in such and such a day and in such and such a day, we send you the letter. And we have copy of the letters they came back. Most of the times, the problem arises is because the sponsor changed the address, went from building A to building B, or moved the research institution in the East Coast to the one in the middle. And they didn't let us know. So if they don't let me know by way of 1571 that you move and you are in another place, I'll keep sending you to the last record I have in the 1571. When I send information or send letters or faxes or emails or pick up the phone, I go and look at the latest one. And again, I might be working with my project managers and I might know my sponsors have them, like I say, in speed dial. I know what the number is. It's just, but what happens if this project manager suddenly moves to a different division or won the lottery and decided to retire in the Caribbean? That would be nice, right? Well, it never happened. I never had that happen, but it's possible, right? Let's be optimistic. So in that case, we lost that. So the only way we go is we go to the 1571. or the cover letter that accompanies it. I say, oh, we need to go. And vice versa, because I might have a person with industry, and I'm lucky enough that the person who worked with me with industry, when they leave, they send me an email and they tell me, okay, I'm leaving, I'm moving, I'm doing this, I retired, decide one of my contacts says, I'm decided to retire to a cabin that we have in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we are very happy. So good for you. I will retire to the Caribbean, but anyway. but in essence, we need that. So this is, I'm trying to get you you will remember to update the 1571 for that. But if you don't get the annual report, we'll send you the letters, and it happens. Another things we need to do now, how much more time do I have, Jeff? Okay, I'll get it fast. Maureen, can I have 5? The lady of the lady from FDS sees 5 minutes, right? Okay. Another element that covers in the regs is inactivation. And if you don't conduct any clinical trial and it's there, why do you need to submit annual report? So might as well submit a letter that is inactive. And anyway, again, if an IND did not, if your IND did not include subjects in clinical trials for the last 2 years, and the application is on hold, all the INDs in application for hold 1 year, in the first case, you can request the inactivation. In the second case, the agency can send you a letter and says you're inactive. Okay. By the way, whenever you get an IND that is in inactive status, you can reactivate it again. And I forgot to tell you that if your IND is terminated, it's not the end of the world. You just need to send us a letter that says, by the way, I did not receive the communication. Please reactivate it. It's reactivate? Yes. No, reinstate. We reinstate the IND. And we send you a letter and say your IND is reinstated, and a lever moves in our system, it becomes active again. So nothing is final. But in that, you don't need to submit annual report. Many sponsors still continue submitting to their inactive IND new information that they find on their product. It's good to send, keep us informed. It's good to know what you are doing. And an IND that remains in inactive status for 5 years may be terminated by FDA. And we send you a letter. And if we terminate it and you don't like it, you can request reinstate. We'll gladly do it. You can also withdraw your IND. You're never going to conduct any more studies in that. Don't want to go through the rigmarole of cleaning your files, and eventually you said, let's withdraw, and those are the conditions. You need to let us know in the letter where you're requesting the inactivation, all these elements, specifically if your reason for withdrawal, and if it's for safety reasons. Most of the times, we have them not make business decision, and they say, we're not going to continue that. And again, an IND that remains on hold for more than 1 year may be placed in inactive status, and a sponsor is not required to submit INDs, annual reports. An IND that remains inactive for 5 years can be terminated. And there were 2 minutes, right, Jeff? Good. Okay, so this is most of what I was trying to tell you about the responsibilities for active INDs. It's a very dry area, but you have to do it. What can I tell you? Maureen is going to tell me about some more interesting things, that they are the expedited programs, and what other options you have to expedite your development programs.
I'm going to go over some expedited programs that we have in the agency, and also try and talk to you a little bit about some other special programs, one that is pretty much housed in my division, and also some other tools available to you just at a high level, just to give you an idea of some of the programs available at the agency. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the expedited programs for serious conditions for drugs and biologics, and these are programs that are intended to facilitate and expedite development and review of new drugs to address unmet medical needs in the treatment of serious and life-threatening conditions. There's a number of programs underneath this. There's FastTrack development, there's breakthrough therapy designation, there's accelerated approval, and also priority review does fall under this, and you'll see that in our guidance document. So first, we'll talk a little bit about the FastTrack program. The FastTrack program was originally implemented with the Food and Drug Administration Modernization Act in 1997. They call it FDAMA. And then it's recently been amended in Section 901 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, or Food, Drug, and Safety and Innovative Act of 2012. And you hear a little bit about that during this presentation because there was 2 new things implemented under that in 2012. So for fast-track products, they are to treat serious conditions, and they require that you have non-clinical and clinical data to demonstrate the potential to address an unmet medical need. And also part of the amendment for FDASIA was the qualified infectious disease products, which I'll cover a little bit later here. So if you have a fast-track product, what you would need to do is submit your request to your IND. The program's not eligible for products that are under pre-IND. And ideally, you would want to do this before your pre-NDA or your pre-BLA meeting. And if you're granted fast-track designation, you'll get a letter from us letting us know that your product's been granted fast-track. And with fast-track designation, you're also eligible to request rolling review. And also, you may be eligible for priority review at the time of your NDA submission. There also is the ability to have the fast-track rescinded if your program no longer meets the criteria for fast-track. The second program is breakthrough therapy, and breakthrough therapy was added under FDASIA in 2012. And it's for a serious condition, and when you have preliminary clinical evidence that the drug may demonstrate substantial improvement on a clinically significant endpoint over available therapies. And so one of the differences between the breakthrough therapy and the fast track is that you do have to have clinical data, and it needs to be much further in development. Under fast track, you can get your designation when you have non-clinical data and maybe some clinical data. But for breakthrough therapy, you really need to be much further in development with your program. Breakthrough therapy is a really intense program. We have a group within the agency that we have to meet with when we get a request for breakthrough therapy. So it's not a decision that's made right at the division level. It involves a lot of people outside of the division to have the designation granted. And there's a whole team that actually runs the program for breakthrough therapy for us. Like all of our programs, you'll get notified by a letter if you're granted breakthrough therapy status. And the benefits of breakthrough are that you get a lot of one-on-one meetings with us and a lot of intense guidance. The idea behind breakthrough is that it's indeed a breakthrough therapy, and we want to get that drug to the market as quickly as possible. I've given you a couple of references in this presentation, also at the end, which I highly recommend with all of our guidance is that you take the time to read the information on our web pages. It's definitely good information. And again, breakthrough therapy is also, like our other programs, it can be withdrawn. I recently had an application that had breakthrough therapy, and it was withdrawn because it no longer met the criteria for breakthrough therapy. And sometimes that happens. You get data later on in your development program, and it just doesn't pan out, and so then you no longer qualify. So keep that in mind. Another one of our programs is accelerated approval. And accelerated approval under drugs is under 21 CFR 314, and also called Subpart H. And under biologics, it's 21 CFR 601 Subpart E, and also was recently amended as part of FDASIA as well. So the guidance on accelerated approval, again, is that these are all serious conditions and generally provides a meaningful therapeutic benefit above other available therapies. And then this is somewhat of the new part. The second part of this was added with FDASIA, but accelerated approval has been around for a long time. I think maybe it was back in 1992, a couple of different years here. But the second part of this was recently added. So for accelerated approval, you'd have to demonstrate an effect on a surrogate endpoint that's reasonably likely to predict clinical benefit, or on a clinical endpoint that can be measured earlier than an effect on irreversible morbidity or mortality that is reasonably likely to predict an effect on IMM or clinical benefit. And a lot of times with the accelerated approval programs, I think one of the examples they use is that these are oftentimes long-term studies. They could be cancer studies, and I think maybe the example in our guidance document is that you have patients that are treated with a drug and for their tumor, and the tumor shrinks. So you think, okay, well, there's got to be some benefit to that, but the benefit isn't measurable till much further down the line. For did it extend their life? Was it life saving? And so those types of programs might be ideal for accelerated approval. So accelerated approval, again, is one of those programs you're going to want to talk to your review division very early in development to whether or not this, your program might qualify for accelerated approval. The outcomes of accelerated approval are you might get your approval, but you're going to be required to do a post-marketing study. I have seen where post-marketing studies have been conducted, and ultimately it resulted in the withdrawal of either an indication or of the product because you weren't able to show the clinical benefit in that study. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We have a lot of successful programs as well, but do keep that in mind. Also, you'll need to provide promotional materials in advance of using them for any product that was approved under accelerated approval. And then this is somewhat specific to my group. So I work in the antimicrobial group, and in 2012 under FADAGIA, they implemented the GAIN they implemented GAIN. So GAIN is generating antibiotic incentives now. So how many people in the audience have heard about resistance? How many people have experienced resistance? So it's pretty widespread. Everybody knows resistance is a really big problem. And so in 2012, they created some incentives for the development of antibacterial and antifungal drugs. And so it's in our group, it's termed Qualified Infectious Disease Product Designation. So they call it QIDIP, but it is part of GAIN, which was under Title 8 of FADAGIA. And some of the benefits for the Qualified Infectious Disease Designation program are that you would get 5 years of extra exclusivity, provided you had exclusivity that you did get at the time of approval for your product. So say your product got 5 years of exclusivity on approval, you were a new molecular entity. Then you would attach that 5 years on top of that, so ultimately we give you 10 years. Or say you got 3 years and you would attach 5 years to that. So, definitely an incentive. It also qualifies you for priority review, which is a big incentive. Priority review would be a review on a six-month or an 8-month clock within the agency versus a 10-month or a 12-month clock. It also makes the program eligible for FastTrack. If you request it after you get QIDIP, or you request it at the same time you get QIDIP, you are eligible to get FastTrack designation. So that's a nice benefit as well. So in order to be part of the Qualified Infectious Disease designation, you would have to be an antibacterial antifungal drug. Your submission would have to demonstrate that your product is indeed that, and it's intended to treat a serious or life-threatening infection, and those caused by specific pathogens. And the agency does publish a list of qualifying pathogens, but as we know, there's also emerging pathogens that we find out about every day, and sometimes those can qualify as, the ones that cause serious and life-threatening infections. So, certainly if you have antibiotics that are in development or antifungals that are in development, it's certainly a program you'll probably want to consider. So anyone in the audience in antimicrobial development, antifungal development? Okay. So a few of you. So it's nice to know that this is out here. One of the criteria for the program is that designation is granted per sponsor, per drug, per dosage form, and per indication. And that's something really important to keep in mind. That's not really transferable unless, of course, you sell your drug product, but it's very specific. And it's granted to sponsors making the request, and it doesn't apply further to that drug substance or beyond the indications for which you are granted Qualified Infectious Disease Product Designation. So how would you go about requesting QIDIP? Very similar to all these other programs. You're going to provide a separate submission to us, requesting it, and provide all the information to support that it's an antibacterial antifungal drug treating a serious or life-threatening condition. And we're going to review that and provide you a letter if indeed we feel that it meets the criteria for Qualified Infectious Disease Product Designation. And it's pretty much the same for all of our programs. For FastTrack and for QIDIP, the turnaround time is 60 days. and you will hear from us within 60 days by letter. And please always talk to your review divisions as well. We recently put out a guidance on this, although it was implemented back in 2012. The guidance went out this year in 2018. So we've had a lot of guidances that have been updated in the last year. So I always recommend that people, please pay attention to the new things added to our guidances, just because science is always evolving, and so is drug development. Some other areas that you might be able to take advantage of, depending on what line of development your programs are in, are the special protocol assessments. And I've listed here a number of special protocol assessments that might be eligible. Animal carcinogenicity protocols, clinical trial protocols, which I see probably used the most in our group, drug substance and drug product stability protocols, animal rule, efficacy studies, which, in our group we also do counterterrorism, so I have seen this used. And then some of the new pieces that have been recently added are protocols for clinical and animal trials for bioequivalence and bioavailability that form the basis for efficacy claims, and then protocols for any necessary clinical study or studies to prove biosimilarity or interchangeability. And that goes along with some of the new stuff with the biosimilar products. So that was added. For special protocols, what you want to make sure you have is that you have an end of phase 2 meeting with us, so that we're really familiar with your products and where you are in your development, in order for us to be able to assess this special protocol. And you're going to want to make your submission with one protocol only. So if you have 2 protocols, even if they're identical protocols, you want to make separate submissions for them to the agency. And we recently updated our guidance on SPAs, and that was updated in April of 2018. It's about a 25-page guidance document, provides a lot of really beneficial information, so I do recommend that you take a look at that. So the agency does have a number of programs available for drug development, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of the ones that are applicable to you. I think it does help you bring your drugs to market faster, and it gives you sometimes a little bit more intense guidance with the agency, although we're always available to work with you. So hopefully this is helpful. And again, I provided a number of resources for you. Please take a look at them. I think they're all very helpful. And I think Judith may come back up, and we may be able to field a couple of questions, because we didn't have time yesterday to do that. So.
Yes. Thank you, Marina. And despite Judith's best effort, we do have 5 minutes left for questions. So go ahead and make your way to the microphones. And while we're waiting for folks to come up, can I have our first online question, please?
And thank you, Jeff. What is the earliest a PSP or waiver can be submitted?
Read it one more time, please.
What is the earliest a PSP or waiver can be submitted?
Are you talking about if it is for pediatric study plans?
It is
It's an online
abbreviated. I'm
question.
assuming that's what it is.
Well, from what I understand, if it is in the PSP, initial pediatric study plan, even if it is for the waiver, for the deferral, partial waiver, you still need to submit the IPSP 60 days, no later than 60 days after the end of phase 2 meeting, and no later than 210 days before the submission of your NDA or BLA if you didn't have an end of phase 2 meeting. There's no difference if it is for deferral, a waiver, or what is exactly. Those are not differentials on the timeline.
Hi, yes. My question is regarding when clinical trials start outside the U.S. and then an IND is filed, and we want to harmonize the annual reporting date with the international birth date. How much in advance do you want before that annual report is due for the harmonization request to harmonize to that birth date?
So I would say as soon as possible, so that we have the opportunity to review the information. And then what happens with those requests is they're reviewed by our clinical team, and then a letter is generated, and the new date that is calculated is provided. So, ideally within enough time so that you don't miss your window for your annual report being due.
Yeah, so as
to
soon as possible
harmonize it.
after the IND filing?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, and you can also time it in and say, well, we're going to start the harmonization in the months of September, but by the way, we will provide some kind of bridge for those 2 months that they were not harmonized. So that can be done too.
All right, microphone number 2, nice and close for me, please.
So, is it a requirement that at the time of accelerated approval, the confirmatory study be completely enrolled, fully enrolled?
At which time point?
At the time of accelerated approval, say the sponsors, filing a phase 2 trial, for accelerated approval, and then they have the phase 3 trial, that will provide the confirmation of clinical benefit. Is it essential that at the time, or is it mandatory at the time, that at the time of granting of accelerated approval, that the confirmatory trial be fully enrolled?
Yeah, no, ideally we would like the program to be moving forward, but there's no requirement that it be underway at the time of approval. So.
Microphone number 1, nice and close for me, please.
Hi, my question concerns annual reporting and safety reporting. You said that a DSUR format can be used in place of an annual report. Can you speak a little bit to the pros and cons of the 2 formats and how they may differ?
There is no preference, but the DSUR is offered for many companies who want to submit just one annual report harmonized with other regulatory entities. We don't have any preference. Whatever is easier for you, we are amenable, we are flexible.
All right, could I get my next online question, please?
For new investigators, can the drug be shipped to the site prior to the notification to the FDA?
Should not be. Prior to notification to the agency?
Yes.
No, the agency should be notified first.
Okay, and we've only got time for one more question in the room. I will remind you all that this, I think you two are going to be very popular at the one-on-one question sessions later on. But if you want to go ahead,
Quick
our last
question.
question, please.
Okay. Thank you. Regarding the start of clinical trial after filing an IND, generally we wait 30 days before we start the clinical trial. Are you obligated to start the trial within 30 days, or can you wait?
You can wait.
You can wait.
You
For
can
how
wait.
long?
You know, as long as you need that, it's not exceed the 2 years not enrolling patients.
Okay.
But it's good to know. You know what? This is a good question. You're going to start your study, and by the way, you said this is our intent to do the study. We still need to get IRB approval, and we don't expect to enroll the first patient until 6 months. It's okay.
Yeah, I have an IND that was submitted in January, and they're very clear in their submission that they don't plan on enrolling until between June and August of this year. Yeah, and it's very helpful for us to know that. So, if you're going to enroll at a later point, just let us know.
That helps.
Yeah,
And it's helped us on the 30 days too, because if we know that you're not going to enroll patients on day 31st, it's useful. We'll make our safety determination by day 30, but it's good to know that on day 31st you are not going to enroll the patient.
So we need to let you know.
Yeah, let us know. You know, communicate with us. The idea is SBIA program, the small business, and the intention of part of this communication is to let industry know we're available. Just communicate. Just communicate and let us know what you need. The worst that can happen is we can tell, no, it's not going to fly. You need to do something different. But the no is over. Just maybe you get a yes.
Thank you.
All right, please help me thank Judith and Maureen for